I'm glad to be where I am today. I have access to a lot of resources. I have way more money than I could ever spend in my entire life. The center of the world is changing. It moved. It moved from Wall Street in New York, in Manhattan to Silicon Valley. Companies could be valued at trillions of dollars. I mean, it would be a joke when it came to the value in 2009 to say a company would ever be valued at $1 trillion, right? Crypto is a center of talent. The best and the brightest minds in the world are going here. What has changed with crypto? Programmers are actually creating money. If you've been following the news, there was a guy called Metacoin, who was a mysterious, secretive guy. Nobody knew who he was. And he paid $69 million to buy an NFT, a non-fungible token. $69 million, it's a very expensive joke. To buy a painting. He's now a billionaire, a pure crypto billionaire. Founder of this religion is a mysterious man whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. Till today, nobody knows who he is. He started this thing called Bitcoin. He's worth $35 billion for founding Bitcoin. That was the solution that Satoshi came up with. That was sort of the breakthrough in computer science. The biggest Ethereum currency is called Uniswap. It is valued at $40 billion today. And, it started as a 300 line of code project by a developer over a weekend. Just a brief introduction to myself. Actually, I'm going to maybe spend 5-10 minutes talking about myself because, I want to give you guys the story and the context behind, why this is important to me and where I come from. So, I am just like many of you guys who are at interview bit or whatnot. I started out as a programmer, deeply fell in love with computers and computer science and did a lot of programming contests. I was ranked 1 in India, top coder, twice ACMI CPC world finalist, twice Google Code Jam world finalist. So did really well at these programming contests, right? That's the thing that I enjoyed the most. And, that's what I wanted to do. And, my first job was at Microsoft Bing on distributed systems. My code was running on hundreds of thousands of machines. I thought that would be the cool thing, right? That's the most technically challenging thing. And I sort of joined Microsoft, but then sort of got the big company training, which is basically, hey, listen, nothing much changes here. Things move pretty slowly. And then at the same time, Silicon Valley was happening. And, I left to Silicon Valley in 2009 with my co-founder, who was also my roommate while we were working at Microsoft. And, to start a company, we sort of lived and worked out of the Stanford dorms and tried starting companies. 18 months, nothing really worked. We had to sort of come back to India, spend 6 months in India, then go back on a tourist visa to the US to, keep trying, right? And after 18 months, one idea really took off like crazy. It was called Like a Little. It was sort of a social network that took off. Almost 20% of the US students were using that site at the peak. The peak happened within 6 months. It grew like crazy. In the first 6 weeks, we had around 20 million page views and it was growing like wildfire, right? And, the who's who of Silicon Valley invested, like Mark Anderson or whatnot. And Zuckerberg wanted to try to buy it. Marissa Mayer from Google tried to buy it for $100 million. And, so that was a, very important experience in my life. For the first time, I came very close to success. I've tasted sort of success. We didn't sell the company. The company failed, and it went to zero. It was sort of a social network / fad. Just like you guys might remember Foursquare. Again today it's nowhere, right? So it sort of was kind of a blip in the radar, and it failed. But it sort of showed me, hey, listen, you can succeed, not just succeed, but at a grand scale, right? And after a lot of reflection and spending a lot of time elsewhere, I came back to start this company called Rippling. Now Rippling has been very, very successful now. It was valued in our last financing round at 1.4 billion dollars, and it's growing very, very fast. So I'm glad to be where I am today. I have access to a lot of resources. I have way more money than I could ever spend in my entire life. And I consider myself extremely lucky. Now, because if you look at the history of the world, there is always, these centers that are evolving, centers of the world that are evolving. It was, when there were painters and artists, it was France, in the 17th century. And, most recently it has been Wall Street, right? The most ambitious young minds all over the world aggregate in New York to do finance. And that was the most important thing that was going on in the world. And it was the center of the world. And to the extent that people like me from a very humble background, people like you and me, who are able to sort of make such huge impacts on this world and create billions and billions of dollars in wealth, it is because we are riding a very important trend in history, that the center of the world is changing. It moved from Wall Street in New York, in Manhattan, to Silicon Valley, right? And and my cohort of people, my friends who are playing that move, are getting insanely wealthy, right? So it's not really a coincidence. I mean, like, of course, my friends who are not in the technology field at all are not wealthy, right? Their living standards have improved a little bit, but just like minuscule, right? So this is centered towards technology. It is centered towards the way the world is moving from Wall Street. The center of the world is moving from Wall Street to Silicon Valley to technology. And, that is what is creating these insane fortunes. And, it's a huge move, right? Like, who thought these companies could be valued at trillions of dollars? I mean, it would be a joke, when I came to the Valley in 2009, to say a company would ever be valued at $1 trillion, right? But now, there are 5 companies or something, which are valued at $1 trillion. Like, technology companies are valued at, there are so many companies valued at hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So on the back of this trend is, where, we sort of get to make a tiny sliver of this large pie, large wealth creation pie, right? Now, I mean, we are lucky enough and fortunate enough to witness one one center of the world move in our lives. If you're lucky, you would sort of witness one such thing, right? These things don't move that often. These sort of large insane trends don't play that often. I think we're looking at the second one. The second one is crypto. Center of the world is moving one more time, and it has decisively moved. I think it has absolutely happened. In Silicon Valley, you sort of live in the future, right? You sort of know, you already have people who are sort of like already living in the future, and you understand, okay, this is how the world is going to look. Everyone else is going to live, 5 years down the line, exactly like this, right? And what is extremely clear is, the center of the world has moved one more time, and it has been accelerated by the crypto revolution. And COVID has certainly helped. Things have become more distributed. You can start things anywhere you want. And crypto is a center of talent. The best and the brightest minds in the world are going here. If I was trying to make a living again, and I was just like fresh leaving Microsoft, I would absolutely be on crypto. And my son will be on crypto. The internet changed the world. People didn't sort of realize it at that time, but it completely changed the world. Again, if you're providing an internet service, the lowest cost, the best product, regardless of geography, is able to win. It has completely interconnected these regional markets into sort of one central market. And like, it's sort of as important as the steam engine. And we are sort of riding on the back of that. This whole tech wave is sort of happening on the back of that, right? This unlocking of potential everywhere in the world. Like, a guy like me creating $1 billion in wealth, it's sort of enabled by the internet, that people from all across the world can sort of have this level of leverage, right? Now, all of us got so the tech boom happened, and all of us sort of got fabulously wealthy. So there was a saying that programmers made a lot of money, right? What has changed with crypto is actually programmers are actually creating money. it's not like, someone else someone else creates the money and pays you. Now, now programmers can actually create the money. And it is the most exciting thing that's happening in the world. It is relatively new. It is started in 2008, but it has seen many, many crypto winters. It is attracting some of the smartest and the best minds in the world, and it is going to continue to attract the best in our generation. And it's going to produce the next Rockefellers. The first trillionaire in the world will be created in crypto. So let's talk more about this. So, I gave you a lot of stories about people, friends who created a lot of wealth in my circle, right? But those stories really dwarf what I'm going to tell you, what I'm going to show you right now. It's absolutely mind blowing. If you've been following the news, there was a guy called Metacoven, who was a mysterious, secretive guy. Nobody even knew who he was. And he paid $69 million to buy an NFT, a non-fungible token, which is an artwork done by a guy called Beeple. And, this guy, paid $69 million. 69 is sort of like a joke, right? Elon Musk sort of keeps talking about the number 69. So this guy paid $69 million. It's a very expensive joke to buy a painting. And, nobody knew who he was. They were searching for him all over the world. And, this guy is actually a friend of mine for, 10 plus years. I've known him. He's from Chennai. His name is Vignesh Sundaresan. And, we've been friends for like 10 plus years now. He and another college roommate of mine worked together on a startup in Chennai. So, he's not from that far away. And, a guy who, he's now a billionaire, a pure crypto billionaire, right? And, he sort of paid like $69 million as the most expensive joke in the world. And, for a while, people were trying to figure out who he really was. So, the story of this guy is even more insane, even more extraordinary and unbelievable, right? He's a Tamil guy, and this is his track record. He was nothing 8 years ago. He had to a total $10,000 in his name 8 years ago. And he's now a billionaire. And he's not a billionaire because, he went out and created companies or whatever. He's a billionaire because he made the right crypto investments. He bought, he sort of introduced me to Bitcoin in 2013. He was all in. He had $10,000 at the time. He was all in on Bitcoin. And, that's 1,000x. It would be a bigger multiple if not for the other things that he did. He did many things in this 8 years, but the three most important decisions that, made him who he is, he bought Ethereum for 50% of his money at the time at the initial coin offering. And that's 100,000x for him, right? He told me to buy Ethereum for various reasons. I'll tell you, I don't want to go into, I didn't buy it, what a sucker I am, for missing that. I thought, hey, my company Like a Little has like so many users. We were valued at 40 million. This new bullshit thing called Ethereum is also valued at 40 million. Like, my company is worth more than that. How wrong was I? So, that was 100,000x for him. It is a religious movement. It's sort of like Christianity to some extent. The saying in crypto is HODL, hold on for dear life. It is sort of, you don't sell, you're in it for the religion. And, we'll talk about why. And it is not often that you hear religion and technologies in sort of the same sentence. Actually, but if you zoom in enough, if you read Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 book, most technology companies, the most important movements are actually cults, right? People in it sort of believe in it like it is a religion. And it gets crazy and crazy. The founder of this religion is a mysterious man whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. And, till today, nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows, like where he is, who he is. He started Bitcoin, right? And, Satoshi is a genius, a complete genius. He started this thing called Bitcoin. He's worth $35 billion for founding Bitcoin, right? Not for founding Bitcoin, but he was the only guy who was mining Bitcoin for a while. And, as a result of that, he is worth $35 billion today, right? Nobody knows who he is. He has not moved a single coin from the 35 billion. So he's not spent, like any money from that, so he's not gotten wealthy at all. He's not spent a single dollar from this invention, right? Which absolutely changed the world, which is worth like, $1.3 trillion. And, you can imagine like how much, people are trying to search and find where the heck is Satoshi, and nobody knows. He's an absolute genius, and that is sort of where this religious movement is coming from. That is where this movement is sort of getting a sense of religion, that hey, listen, Satoshi was so selfless, which like it's sort of almost like an act of God. People are speculating, what the fuck, these things cannot happen, right? Like, if you're a human, what are you motivated by? You might be motivated by fame. Of course, Satoshi was not, he didn't reveal who he was. You still don't know. You can't find out. You can be motivated by money. Of course, Satoshi was not. He is still not, spent a single dollar from his fortune, right? So, you don't even understand what his motivations are. Certain important changes in history are so weird that it's sort of like, people speculate it's just an act of God or something, right? So that's where this mysterious religious roots of this whole movement is coming from, is from the selfless founder, who did it for the world. And if you look at the first block of Bitcoin, it has a New York Times article from 2009. Bitcoin was launched in 2008, and the first block of Bitcoin has this New York Times article which says Federal Reserve bails out Wall Street for the fourth time. And Bitcoin was a rebellion to that. Right? It is sort of starting with a mission statement saying, hey, America, the most powerful country in the world, the most powerful currency in the world, the US dollars, this is a rebellion against you, right? This is the rebellion against state control of money. This is sort of the free world, and we are going to start it. And that's the religion that people are, passionately drawn into. This problem was unsolved for 25 plus years. It was one of the hardest computer science problems. And people are imagining, a lot of different algorithms where, you want to attain consensus really fast, right? This is database, you're sort of talking sub-millisecond latencies. And how do you attain consensus really fast? People are thinking, along those lines for 20, 25 plus years. And then Satoshi came in and, he solved this problem. This anonymous guy, who just like published this paper and solved this problem. And that paper was not accepted or sent to any conference, right? In academia, you're not anonymous. You're doing it for the name. But, this guy came in and solved the problem. And it's very interesting, the way he solved it is by sort of taking an opposite approach. Everyone was trying to attain very quick consensus, but Satoshi came in and said, took the opposite approach and said, consensus is going to take 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, right? And that is mind blowing in a database land. Like, for people to agree on a state, taking 12 hours is sort of like, mind blowing. But that was the solution that Satoshi came up with. That was sort of the breakthrough in computer science. The mind blowing part is he sort of did this computer science breakthrough and immediately started this currency called Bitcoin. Like what, Bitcoin is a major marvel in economics, right? So you not only had someone who solved this amazing computer science problem, he also sort of solved this economics problem and, created the system called Bitcoin, right? And this is sort of, a major, like unexpected event, so, and it's valued at $1.3 trillion today. Just going back to the history of money, what is money, at a very fundamental level is, before this we used to do barter. I had wheat, you had sugar. I came with you with my wheat and you gave me your sugar, right? And the issue with that is, you don't have a sugar harvest yet. Wheat grows in winter season, sugar grows in summer season, let's say. Now I need to store my wheat till you have sugar till summer, and then a lot of my wheat rots. You're hungry because your family is hungry because you don't have wheat yet. All these problems happen, right? So to sort of just replace these two edges of a barter system with just one edge. So instead, if I had money, I sold my wheat today and and got money, I sort of move my purchasing power to the future. And when it's summer, when you have a sugar harvest, I come back with the money and I buy your sugar, right? So that's the reason for money to evolve as an exchange mechanism. It's just much more efficient than barter. And for a while, many countries sort of created money based on gold. Gold was sort of the international currency for a while. People somehow naturally agreed on that unit of exchange. Gold doesn't have any sort of other fundamental value, right? It was just shiny, and everyone started agreeing to use it as a unit of tracking money, and it worked for many centuries. And if you look at history, Rome was one of the most successful empires, and they would print money based on gold. They would say, hey, listen, 10 Roman money is redeemable for 10 units of gold, 10 grams of gold. And then once a recession hits, then the emperor would say, no, now it's redeemable only for 5 grams of gold. And then they'll create a lot more currency and everyone will feel rich. And then the next recession will hit, and then they'll say, oh, it's now redeemable only for 2 grams of gold, right? So this is called currency debasing, and it happens over and over again, and it has happened in history several times. The most recent debasing that we're all seeing is like the money supply in the US. It was $8 trillion in 2008 after the recession. So in the 2008 recession, when Satoshi sort of fought against, created Bitcoin, fighting against the establishment, the total money supply in the US was $8 trillion, and US printed $1 trillion to sort of bail out the banks and rescue the economy. And that was what Satoshi fought against. In 2020, when coronavirus happened and economy fell into a recession, in 2020 alone, within 3 months, the US printed $8 trillion in new money supply, right? This is just like happening in epic proportions. It is sort of similar to the Roman debases. And fiat money, throughout history always crashes within a couple of centuries, right? It is if one thing is predictable, it is that the fiat money gets debased and it crashes, right? The longest time the fiat money sort of lived was in China. For 2 centuries, it was alive. During the dynasty of Ming, it was the world superpower for 2 centuries. The dynasty of Ming, it was the richest, it was the center of the world at the time. And, it survived for 2 centuries, right? So that was the longest that fiat money has always survived in history. And, the US dollar is going through, a similar movement. And it's sort of happening all around the world. Usually when these sort of crashes happen, it's not isolated to the US, like every country sort of starts following it. And, sooner or later it comes to an end, right? Now coming back to how this stands, with the steam engine and the internet, countries are now, becoming irrelevant because internet is sort of connecting across countries, and COVID and crypto are sort of like great accelerators in this, right? Now, on the internet, a big primitive that was missing was money. And people have been trying to create internet money for a long time. It is actually an important component of making the internet work. I mean, imagine how many spam mails you're getting, right? But the right protocol for email, if the right protocol for email is to attach a tiny, like 1 cent with every email that people send, then you can just solve the spam problem. You can solve the spam requests problem, right? Just one case study is, there was a guy who bought this company called BitTorrent. Many people have used torrents here, right? BitTorrent, he bought it for $100 million, right? And it is a protocol where you sort of exchange files and share stuff and all that, right? And he transformed it by introducing a native token within Bitcoin called BitTorrent token, where when I give you some information, you give me some BitTorrent tokens, right? So we sort of keep the BitTorrent token blockchain as a unit of account for how much I have helped others, versus how much others are helping me. If I take others' help, I spend some token. If I'm helping others, then I gain some tokens, right? So there is this ledger called BitTorrent token, which is now worth $8 billion. He bought it 3-4 years ago for $100 million as a native internet product, and now that has been transformed into $8 billion product, right? It is kind of obvious. You would want to keep track of these things, right? Now I'm going to talk about the future. So, Ethereum, this happened in 2010, 2011. This is the first general purpose database. Bitcoin stored only Bitcoin is a distributed database, but it stored account to balance data. That's it, right? Ethereum, you store the state of an arbitrary virtual machine called the Ethereum virtual machine. The virtual machine has some data that it can store, and and you just stored it, right? It's a global computer. So code is law in this territory, and you don't need to trust anyone. And for the first, that's the biggest breakthrough after Bitcoin, because if you have a DB, then you might as well create a general purpose database, right? And that has created a Cambrian explosion in this space. It has just, the world has changed since then. Since 2010, it's been 10 years. So what has happened in these 10 years? So there is this huge wave called DeFi. DeFi is a short form for decentralized finance. It has completely taken over Ethereum. And this is the new Wall Street. Like Wall Street is literally, their business is moving into Ethereum, right? Because you are replacing all these trusted middlemen with trustless middlemen, which is basically Ethereum, right? And, there are infinite new currencies and coins that have been created since. There is a class called ERC20. It's a base class in Ethereum that supports creating a new coin. So it's, if you want to create a new coin, it's as simple as deriving this base class and implementing a few functions in Ethereum, and you have a new currency, right? At a fundamental level, a new currency is just a mapping, is just a hash map from an address to balance, how much balance that address public key holds, right? And some rules around how to earn it or spend it. It's a unit of account where, it is sort of a new network where if you add value to the network, you can earn the currency. And if you sort of take away value from the network, you need to spend the currency. That's all it is. That's all currency is at the end of the day. And in Ethereum land, it's just a base class that you derive, and you have an address to balance mapping, and you can define the rules of how to earn or spend the currency. So I say Wall Street, right? The biggest Ethereum currency is called Uniswap. It is valued at $40 billion today. And, it started as a 300 line of code project by a developer over a weekend, right? So, again, we're talking about, and it was founded only a year back, right? So, and it's now valued at $40 billion. How many people have heard of it? So it's not that much of a household name like Twitter is. Twitter is probably valued at $40 billion as well, but more people have heard of Twitter than Uniswap. Now, what is Uniswap again? So Uniswap is an automated market maker. So let's say you have Ethereum and Bitcoin, and you want to trade some Bitcoin for Ethereum. So this is a program. This is a similar class which lets you swap between Ethereum and Bitcoin or any two currencies, right? And it is going to give you a quote. So it is sort of an automated market maker, and for making the markets for you. So it buys and sells Bitcoin and Ethereum or like any other currency. And to trade with it, it'll charge you a 0.05% fees, right? Now again, like when you trade in your with your broker, they charge way more fees than this, right? But because Wall Street is becoming commoditized, because code is doing this market making, it charges only like 5 basis point fees. And those fees don't go to the founders or some company. It goes to the whole people who hold these tokens, the Uniswap tokens, right? So, for the first time, there is something called a DAO that's introduced. A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. Anyone who holds a Uniswap token, gets to govern how Uniswap works. They decide how to change the code, how to upgrade the code, what fees to charge, what to do with the fees that the company earns, and nobody knows who the shareholders of this company are. The people only know the public keys who hold these shares. the Uniswap tokens, but nobody, this is completely autonomous and it's decentralized. It's not sort of people sitting in a room and making decisions. Boardroom is just some internet anonymous forums, right? So that is how crypto tokens work. It's decentralized. It is an autonomous organization, right? And just look at how big it is now. Like there is $8 billion worth of liquidity, on Uniswap, and you can see that it only started in May 2020. There was only $14 of liquidity, right? And you can see the rate at which it's growing. It's now at $8 billion. In the last 1 hour alone, last 24 hours, there was $1.43 billion of liquidity, that was sort of exchanged in this. So that is the sort of rate of growth that we're talking about here, right? This is just insane. This is the new Wall Street. And we live in an age of infinite leverage, where within a year you can create $40 billion of wealth. And anyone, any autonomous person, any anonymous person can participate in this wealth creation, can buy these tokens and, share a part of the wealth creation. There is a similar thing called Compound, which is the largest internet bank. So you can deposit your crypto and you can borrow US dollars or like other assets in the smart contract on top of Ethereum. And, today, for example, you get 8% per year to sort of deposit your assets, or 10% per year to borrow from there. They provide higher interest rates than your bank account. And, this also runs on negative unit economics, right? You get 4% per year of Compound tokens for vesting, for sort of depositing or borrowing. So, like, imagine a bank that's losing money, it would go out of business very soon because, because it is just running into infinite losses. But in this case, it becomes the largest bank in the world because, the way it's losing money, it's not losing money in US dollars. It's just giving out more of its own company tokens to its users, right? So it can't go bankrupt because, the users are holding these tokens. And, because of that, they're incentivized to deposit assets or borrow assets from this bank, and it becomes one of the biggest banks in the world. Again, if speculators come in and double the price of the bank, then instead of 4% per year in bank equity, you sort of end up getting 8% per year, right? In USD denominated terms, if the price of the bank tokens double, then you get more interest rate. So because of higher interest rate, more assets come in and get supplied to the bank, and it becomes a bigger bank, right? So that is how speculators create these economics, and and that is how these things become one of the largest banks in the world, largest market makers in the world, and so on. So this is the idea of network effect, right? So in a network effect business, like what actually happens is companies are VC funded. In the beginning they lose a lot of money. They're almost in negative unit economics, and till then they're so very nice to their users. They're always losing their money and so on, losing their own money and being very nice to users. And once they become a monopoly, they can set the terms, they can change the prices, right? And the early investors, the VCs, benefit from that, right? You have the Facebook, you have whatnot. Like most network effect businesses work that way. And Peter Thiel had this interesting sort of question: is innovation constrained by founders or by demand, right? And China took the position that it is actually constrained by demand. So China sort of famously walled off its internet, and it said, I don't need a Zuckerberg. A new Zuckerberg will automatically spring up within China, and they did, right? And India lost out on that. China sort of had created all this wealth internally. The Facebook of China is some Chinese network. The Amazon of China is some Chinese network, and so on. So the network effects, they were able to protect their network, the Chinese network, and and keep much of the wealth that got created within those network effects, right? And and crypto is the first effective weapon against this sort of network effect businesses, because it is open, and you can have open speculators who are targeting the global markets, who are sort of funding these network effects from all over the world. And because the equity is so open, because these prices of these tickers change every second, every day, everything plays out way faster, right? To create a Facebook, it took 10 years. To create a Uniswap, it took 10 months, right? These feedback loops run, on steroids on the crypto ecosystem. So you can imagine a Uber for it. You can imagine, why do you need a Uber company, right? Why can't the taxis talk directly with the passengers? Why do you need a company in between? You could have a network where if you added value to the network, you get paid. The taxi sort of drivers get paid. If you took away value from the network, if you took the rights, then you sort of pay those tokens. And there could be token speculators who are subsidizing creating of these network effects in the beginning and who are benefiting from these network effects in the end. And it could be an open ecosystem where, a Uber happens, or an electricity grid does not need to be a company, right? It could be a peer-to-peer accounting ledger. If you contributed electricity into the grid, you get paid. If you took away electricity, you sort of lose some tokens, right? Similarly, Airbnb, similarly, Instacart, Amazon, everything is going to get rebuilt. It is a certainty that all of these are going to get rebuilt on crypto. The question is just a matter of when. It is not an if. These companies are not going to exist in 20 years. These companies are going to be crypto native. That is a certainty. Indians can play a big role. Indians sort of missed out on the internet revolution because, we are always this open country, right? Like, we speak English, and, the Facebook of India turned out to be Facebook. Unlike China, which sort of played a closed network game, we didn't sort of, it was, culturally, it wasn't palatable to us. That's not the way sort of we work. But, crypto is one such way where we are sort of like more culturally aligned. And, I think Indians are going to play a big role in this ecosystem. They could. It's an opportunity. I'm personally planning to mentor 10, 20 people who are sort of really good engineers who want to get into the blockchain space. And I'm collaborating with InterviewBit to start a blockchain specific program. I'm very excited about India because India has like enormous pools of talent who can do heavy infrastructure work, heavy scaling work, the kind of work that blockchain needs, who are making very little money today, right? They don't have the same kind of access to create these billions of dollars, that have traditionally been enjoyed by Silicon Valley. And crypto is going to change that. The only sort of kink in the armor is like, I wish government was more supportive. The Indian government, it's a huge opportunity for Indians, but the government is sort of trying to ban crypto and stuff. Anyway, my email address is myprassana@gmail.com, and feel free to reach out to me. I would love to share some materials, maybe by email or something, with readers. There is a really good resource called How to Build Your Own Blockchain by Hasib Qureshi, and there are these amazing materials to learn about Cosmos SDK and Substrate, which is sort of the Django and the Ruby on Rails of this blockchain development land. They have pretty good resources of how you can get started. You can learn about Solidity, which is Ethereum's native programming language. Definitely, there's a lot of interesting things happening. The one that I am sort of most bullish on right now is a coin called Atom. It's Cosmos. Cosmos is sort of like the Python Django, the Django framework of crypto. It lets you build your own blockchain. It's not cheap. It's worth like $5 billion. But there are some of the major biggest crypto projects are built on top of that. The ticker name is Atom. So I'm very bullish on Atom related to other coins. I'm also, I hold a lot of Ethereum. I think it's the Wall Street of crypto of the world. That has already been proven out. Ethereum is already worth $300 billion. So that's not, that's not going to give the next 10x or 100x. I'm also bullish on Polkadot and this coin called Near. Near is sort of sharded Ethereum. I know the founders personally, and they're ACMI CBC World finalists, so they're building a really good blockchain. So these are some of my holdings. These are most of my holdings, pretty much. a lot of Cosmos, a lot of Ethereum, Polkadot, and Near.
Hey, hi everybody. So we are live after I think a gap of a week. So sorry for that. But today we are here and we are talking about a topic which I think a lot of people would be very interested in. So people would be very much it's in a hype, and Bitcoin and all everybody keeps talking about. What we'll talk about today though is we will talk about blockchain, the core technology on top of which all of these cryptocurrencies work. But blockchain is also used for a lot of other things like smart contracts, decentralized finance, decentralized government, many things happening. And we have been seeing that these days jobs in the blockchain domain are also increasing. Even big companies are starting to hire for blockchain engineers, and we will discuss about that with Abhimanyu. So to get started with, obviously it is something in the hype, and it is every time Bitcoin price goes up, this blockchain hype increases every time. Everybody starts talking more about it. Current state, what do you think in terms of tech jobs though? Not about the hype. People are talking about invest in Bitcoin, this that. But in terms of tech jobs in blockchain, do you think that is gradually increasing? Do you think it's a field that will grow for blockchain developers?
Right. So actually, first, there is two distinction, as you pointed out, that there is cryptocurrency and there is blockchain, right? And cryptocurrency is I think, the financial solution built on top of blockchain. Blockchain is more fundamental than that, right? And then if we look at that, there's, let's say, if I say that there is a fundamental technology concept, which is blockchain. On top of that, people created various cryptocurrencies. And then in cryptocurrencies we have your Bitcoin, there might be Ethereum, and then there might be some other shit coin, as they call it, that keep coming every day. Or Elon Musk might be talking about Doge or whatever. But essentially, irrespective of what ups or downs might be happening in the cryptocurrency market, blockchain as a piece of technology is that definitely a very interesting piece of technology. It definitely has a lot of uses which have a potential of very big impact. In a very fundamental ways, what blockchain gives us capability to build is basically there is this concept of trustless systems, right? If we see that the systems around us, there is always like most of the things on which the world runs, they are like high trust systems. So for example, when you keep your money in the bank, you trust the bank that the bank will not run away, right? Or let's say when you are putting value to a currency, when I say that I am okay with my employer paying me salary in Indian INR, Indian rupee, or US dollar, then again you are putting a trust in the Indian government or American government that the piece of paper they are giving me, it will retain its value, right? So there is an inherent trust. What blockchain enables us to build solutions are which do not have to necessarily depend on trust. Rather, it's a more of a unanimous public ledger. And the applications could be plenty, right? One obvious application that comes to mind is of currency, and that is why we see a lot of the maximum number of uses of blockchain currency. That being said, as a developer, definitely people who understand this piece of technology well, even actually right now, one thing that I can tell you is that while of course I wouldn't say that there are millions of jobs available in the for a blockchain engineer, but the thing is that even few thousand jobs which are which companies are trying to hire for, and the number of people who are expert in blockchain is probably very, very low right now. So it's a extremely scarce technical talent right now. And what that leads to is that there is massive amount of wealth being created. And I may give this anecdotal example that I heard from someone that there is a Ukrainian development blockchain crypto development company with 5 developers, and monthly they make many $millions as their just as a software development fees for the companies they do the development work for, right? So because it's a piece of technology where that very few, and it is actually very candidly, it's a very specialized field of software development. So the programmers who are able to excel in developing very high quality blockchain applications are the best developers first. They are the best programmers first, right? So at this intersection there are very few, and what that leads to is that exceptionally high billing rates or exceptionally high payments being made to the developer. Crypto, for example, in itself is multi-trillion-dollar economy already, with very few people involved in it. And so definitely it has massive amount of, like, apart from the hype of the cryptocurrency, which is actually always kind of fluctuating, it is unstable. So it is very hard to comment which cryptocurrency will actually work or not. But as a piece of technology, blockchain definitely I do very strongly believe is that will remain for very long time, and people who are expert in it will have a lot of benefit for them.
Right. That makes definitely a lot of sense. I mean, I see like the Ukrainian company you were talking about. Here in India also there's this company called Frontier. They do some blockchain solutions and all. I know a friend of mine who works on their mobile app. The CTO is also well known. So he was also recently saying, yeah, please start something at Scalar also or blockchain. We're not getting engineers for this, and it's a high lot in demand. We're a very small team itself. We are earning so much with blockchain solutions and all. So definitely, this is something that is growing. So I think for young engineers who are getting into this field, one thing I feel they should be always very aware of it, that this is not really only about cryptocurrencies as we originally discussed about. So are you also seeing that like blockchain getting used in other domains as well, like apart from just the cryptocurrency thing, like you're seeing blockchain used in different technical solutions?
Right. No, absolutely. As I mentioned, that blockchain essentially is a fundamental technology piece, while its most famous uses are in the currency, in the storage of value, but that doesn't mean that is the only way. So for example, one very common uses of blockchain technology that many of the audience or might have still heard is NFT, non-fungible tokens, right? Now NFT, for example, has nothing to do with currency. Now let's say one use case where, again, as I mentioned, that blockchain helps build you trustless systems, right? Now let's say if I tell you about art, right? If there is, let's say, like right behind you, I think now I see some piece of art, right, which is might be some painting. Now whether this, now the value of the painting will go exponentially high if it was the original painting painted by the, let's say, the original painter. But if it is, let's say, if I looked at that painting and I created a replica or I just created a print of it, then suddenly the value goes much lower, right? Now when I'm buying a painting from someone, how do I be sure that it is the original painting and it's not a replica? It's the original painting, let's say, painted by Picasso or Van Gogh or whoever. Now again, there is a trust involved there, that I am just trusting the art gallery that the painting they are selling me is original one, right? But now then blockchain also builds a solution for that, right? Similarly, let's say in the world of internet, again, originality loses its meaning, right? If it is a digital art, let's say if I create a digital art, how do I make sure that the digital art copy that someone has is actually the authentic copy that was built by me, and it's not just a digital copy created of it, right? So there is this very interesting story. So Metakovan is a crypto billionaire. He's Indian, actually. Interestingly, he's a very good friend of one of my friend, Prassana. So Metakovan is a crypto billionaire, and how he became a billionaire was he invested just about $10,000 in cryptocurrency back in 2011, and that kind of increased in value to more than $1 billion. And he bought digital art NFT for $69 million. That was the first auction of a digital art. So blockchain, for example, has now entered into digital art auctions and to ascribe value to art. Similarly, blockchain is also used to kind of even in the medical science or music royalty tracking. So for example, if I create a music, I can use cryptocurrency to make sure that whenever someone is listening to it, some royalty is transferred over to me through blockchain, right? So there are plenty of uses. One thing that every techie should understand is that blockchain is not about currency alone. there are plenty of very interesting uses that even you can think of. Anything where you feel that the value can be distributed, and I do not want to trust on a centralized authority, you
Right.
can maybe build a solution on blockchain there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Next question that I would ask is that, given that the technology is obviously important, and it is sort of people are both learning. A lot of new people are learning. The jobs are also getting created. Now, if I compare that to sort of rest of the industry, app development, machine learning, data science, so many fields there. If we now blockchain also becomes another field in that sense. So,
Right.
how high or low in the list of priority would you say
Right.
developers should put blockchain? Like, is it something
Right.
they must learn today? Is it good
Right.
to have? Is it just
Right.
another new thing?
Right. 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 So one thing I would want to emphasize very clearly on is that blockchain is not a fancy new piece of technology which is tangential or independent from current set of technologies that we all have been working on, right? So a good blockchain developer would be a very good developer first, right? So you may
Right.
consider it's like a specialization of in the field, right? So let's say there might be, one might say that neurosurgery is a very new advanced field of surgery, but a
Right.
neurosurgeon will have to be a good surgeon and then a good doctor first. Someone thinking
Correct.
that like neurosurgery is very fancy, so let me not understand, learn the basic medicine or basic surgery, I will directly become neurosurgeon. That is not going to happen. That's not possible, right? So one thing, and with this is in tech, actually this is a common mistake that I see people making, be it AI, ML, data science, or blockchain, IoT, that sometimes people try to think that I will just read some superficial stuff about this advanced technology, and that will lead to very great career outcome. That never happens. First you have to make sure that you focus on building very strong fundamentals, like, so for example, blockchain in itself, it's nothing but a linked list kind of data structure, which is distributed, which is distributed across multiple machines on internet, right? So until and unless you know programming very well, you understand all these data structures, like distributed systems, you understand linked list trees, etc., really well. Without that, the possibility that you will be able to become a good blockchain developer is zero. So first you
Right.
should definitely focus on that. Second is that, of course, everyone doesn't need to become a blockchain developer. Blockchain rise of blockchain doesn't mean that there will be any reduction in other kind of tech things.
Right.
It is one specialization which is going to grow, which is going to have more demand than what it has right now. And even right
Right.
now, demand versus supply, demand is much higher than the supply, right? So if you
Correct. Correct.
first build your very strong skills, fundamentals in the computer science and programming, and then of course explore blockchain, if it does look interesting to you, then you should maybe take a deep dive, and it might be very rewarding career. That,
Right.
however, you shouldn't be driven by the FOMO, that I should skip any of the fundamentals, be it development, be it learning data structures, algorithms, or how distributed systems work, and jump into
Right.
blockchain. That will not be wise. So it is basically as
Oh, I think lost a little bit of your audio last, I think, 1 minute or so. Hello, are you there? Hey, Avenue. I think there's
pretty
some audio problem. Are you able to hear me properly?
much on the top of the pyramid. It is a specialization. First focus on the fundamentals, and then you can
I think we lost Abhimanyu there for a while. Let me quickly see. I'll just wait for Abhimanyu to sort of join back for a second.
Hello. Hey,
Hey.
looks like there was some issue on my internet. Am I clearly visible, audible now?
Yes, you are. Yes. I think
Great.
you were
Sorry
talking about
that.
the sort of people should know the fundamentals first. I think you were talking about that. I think that's when we had a little bit of breaking of connection.
Got it. Yeah. So as I was saying that it's important to kind of first build your fundamentals of computer science before jumping into any specialization. But if you think that one is already good with fundamentals, and then it absolutely makes sense to explore the space. And then if
Right.
it looks interesting, then it's better to explore further then.
Right. So now talking a little bit about India itself, though, India has not been the forefront of this revolution. Has been a little bit picking up, a little lagging behind because of a lot of things. I think regulation as well as interest as well as investment. So. What do you think about the future of both, like I think cryptocurrencies as well as larger blockchain domain in India going in the next few years?
Right.
How does it look like?
Right. No, so actually, at least the early signs right now are very, very promising. Good thing is that actually there is a strong, even in the on the policy side as well. There are strong
Yeah.
lobby groups to kind of promote the growth in the crypto space, crypto blockchain in general. And if we see, there are quite a few very high growth companies. There is I think Polygon, there is the WazirX, these companies are doing very well, attracting a lot of capital. What I also know is that for example, WazirX, Polygon kind of companies, they have even hired a lot of skiller graduates that I have seen.
Yes, they
The
have actually. Yes.
Right. So the quality of talent they are attracting, the kind of salaries they are paying, that is generally always an indicator of as they say that often in the VC, in my VC friend circle, I also hear that one strongest signal that which space is going to grow a lot is to watch which space is hiring a lot of best engineers at very high salaries, right? Because
Right.
so for example, back in 2011-12, it was e-commerce which was hiring a lot of engineers at a very fast pace,
Right.
and naturally in the forthcoming years we saw the growth, right? Then it was maybe ed tech, and then these days actually one thing that I do see, given from the tech circles, or looking at the movement of a lot of engineers, even skiller grads, what I see that like a lot of crypto companies are hiring really exceptional talent in fairly good volumes, paying really good salaries. So that is definitely a very strong indicator
Right.
that the field, there is something very worthwhile happening in the field, right? So in India, I do see
Right.
that while we are little late to the party, compared to let's say Eastern Europe or US, we are little late to the party as a geography. But it's gonna grow a lot in the coming time in India as well.
Right. We have had some questions that have also come in. I think so. Vikas has asked that if at Scalar there is any plans to begin any programs around blockchain.
Yeah, yeah. No, we are exploring that. Only thing that kind of stops us from starting a course is that we would want to make sure that the job space matures up a little more. Because
Right.
if like one thing that we take pride in is exceptional actual outcomes for our graduates. And one function of that if we are starting a cohort, we would want to make sure that there are high quality jobs available for them all as well. So we are just
Yeah.
waiting for the space to mature up a little bit more before we start a cohort
Plus
on
we
that.
are plus we are still catching up on supply demand on the more conventional engineering space itself, right?
Right,
I mean,
right, right.
I think Even with all these hiring partners whom we showcase our pool to, they still need more people than what we have to provide them. So
Correct. Absolutely. It's a wild west in the Indian tech space. So if I go to any employer, probably they would want 10x or 100x more engineers first before worrying about blockchain engineers. So there are many battles to fight. So we have to pick a few. I think that is the only thing which is stopping us.
Okay, so of course, when we see that this is a space that, as we are discussing, a little bit of hype and all is there. So a lot of people are getting into it because of the hype as well, rather than the fundamentals. So, like any word of caution or advice as well, that some downsides that are there because of this crypto hype. What are the things people should look out for? Yeah.
No, so no denying that have been a massive hype around crypto, not just very recently, but in last 2, 3, 4 years as well, right? And we have seen those ups and downs, the tulip mania, where suddenly everyone is buying, and then there are price crashes, etc. Right? One thing, however, even hypes do follow a pattern. That, for example, if you look at history of internet as well, right?
Yeah.
When internet in the very beginning, there was a period where everyone was going in the mad rush, right? So there are two categories of people. There are first early adopters who understand the concept, who knows what the real value is, and then they kind of make bets on it. And that always follows a second wave of mad rush, where because of certain returns or certain things, there will be a larger volume of people who do not really understand what is going on, but they just start jumping into the space just because everyone else is doing it, right? And that is what leads to rush, and that is what leads to crash later as well. Now when the crash happens, then despite value being there, then people start doubting that like there is a crash happening, so there must be no value at all, right? So both are incorrect. Just like the rise of internet, crypto and blockchain as a fundamental has a lot of value. But then there was a mad rush that started where a lot of people, and actually very candidly, there were even organizations who took wrong benefit of that, right? Launching, let's say, tokens which do not really have any inherent value, launching them with a lot of fanfare, a lot of people investing in them, and then them entirely crashing. So what I would say is that see, like, these cycles are nature of the industry. Hypes come, hypes go. But then fundamental remains, and they on a longer period of time. So for example, anyone who said, there were actually back in 1998, 99, there were people who said that internet is just hype and it will not even exist, right? Which was absolutely not true. While there was a crash in 98, 99, the dot-com bubble burst and a lot of money was lost, but that didn't mean that the fundamental piece of technology which is adding value, that will get lost, right? So same with the blockchain.
The companies like Google, Amazon, they also sort of grew during that bubble only. So
absolutely,
who had their fundamentals right, they are huge companies today.
Absolutely. So we are going to see a similar pattern in the blockchain as well. That is what I see. However, what one must remain very careful about is that, particularly when it comes to financial investments, right?
Yes.
There one definitely should be very, very cautious. One thing that I advise everyone very strongly against is that until and unless you are a professional investor whose full-time job 24/7 is just investing and pulling out money, more of doing day trading, you shouldn't do speculative trading of in the crypto space. Otherwise 99%, but rather 99.9% chances are that you are going to lose your money, right? Either you can do, if you understand the fundamentals really well, if you know that there are certain fundamentals that I understand, then you should only consider doing very long-term investment where that for next 4 or 5 years I'm not even gonna look at what prices are gonna be, and then you do those investment only considering where you understand the real fundamental, not just that my friend said it's gonna give a lot of return, so I'm investing, right? So you should only invest in spaces where you really understand the stuff. And trading, day trading, or the kind of like thinking that fine, I will just invest now, and when it's at peak I will sell it out and make some cash. Don't do that. 99% chances are that there are big players who are actually moving the market, and they are the ones who make the money, and you 99% of the kind of retail traders, they always end up losing the money. So my advice will be against that. Only do value investing for long term if you understand the fundamentals well, else stay away from financial investment. Rather learn the tech, learn the the programming behind it, learn the kind of architecture behind it, and make money as a developer building those systems, rather than kind of fueling your money into just the financial instruments.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think sort of one aspect that we already did cover a little bit about things that people fundamental they should learn in the technology before they get into blockchain. But we also have had some more questions also about that. I think Raj and Jeevan they have asked. So I'll try to get into that a little more into detail once again. That is, if somebody wants to learn about blockchain technology professionally, so what are sort of the building blocks around it? There are a lot of important pieces in fundamental computation which are important,
Right.
and a lot of people skip that and they start getting into solidity,
Right.
etc. Before that,
Right.
your views on that? What are
Right.
important topics that they must cover?
Right. So one very basic fundamental building block of if you are thinking of getting started with blockchain and crypto, first you have to understand what is cryptography. Cryptography is actually not a new field, like it's actually, interestingly, the development of computer science itself started because of cryptography.
Correct.
During the Second
Alan
World War,
Turing and
when
all this.
Alan Turing, when they started trying to decode the Nazi Germany's message, that is what cryptography is about, and like that is what led to actually development of computers at the first place, right? So
Correct.
cryptocurrency, when we say, that is how where it is rooted, right? So understanding cryptography, of course, first is very important. Understanding the basic fundamental designing blocks of cryptography,
Right.
which actually often is based on various hashing algorithms, because now, like many of you might have heard, that hashing is the basic building block of cryptocurrency as well, right? That
Right.
every block is basically first hashed. Miners, basically, the crypto miners, they
Right.
hash different blocks, and then together they make a meaningful block of the whole chain that gets created. So first,
Right.
building a very sound understanding of cryptography is very, very important. If you do not understand that, you might be using certain libraries and frameworks, but you most likely will not be able to make meaningful contribution to the development of crypto systems. So that is first. And cryptography then in turn is actually basically very heavily rooted in advanced mathematics, like the Euclidean plane, on which, like, for example, how do these various hashing functions work, is
Right.
essentially very advanced mathematical functions, right? So
Right.
that is the, I think, very fundamental that everyone should learn. So basically, how do Merkle's chain work? What are the various hashing techniques used in the computations? That is something very important. So one must first focus on those fundamentals, right?
Correct.
Now, again, when we talk about blockchain, crypto, etc., it sounds like it must be some very new fancy tech, but it is not so. So as I was saying earlier, that it is
Yeah.
nothing but, in a way, a distributed linked list, right?
Yeah.
So one very starting point might be just go ahead and start solving multiple problems based on linked list, maybe on interview bit, right? Because that is the fundamental. If you do not understand how in a linked list different blocks point to each other, and how there might be a multi-dimensional, like two-dimensional linked list, or how there could be circular linked list or doubly linked list, etc., these are, I think, first, having very strong command on all these fundamentals is very important for to be able to become a good blockchain developer.
Understood. Understood. No, that's definitely there. I have, I have taken sometimes, some classes and all where people have been interested in talking about blockchain, and I
Yeah.
find that, even if I explain to them how, say, this hash tree for a torrent gets created when it is
Yeah.
uploaded to the peer network, or how Git works, basically, this commit IDs of Gits, they are also linked like a blockchain. And
Right.
explaining them, a lot of people then realize that, oh, it's not fundamentally different from how we have
Correct.
been using these concepts already in other places,
Correct. Yeah.
and knowing them better can obviously help a lot.
Correct.
And So by the way, there is another question here. So Raj has asked that if he knows web development, understands the concept of cryptography and the concepts of blockchain, is it possible to make a project involving blockchain? So I think I can take up a little bit of this, Raj. Here I would say look at what are called these days dApps are called distributed apps. It's called and look at things like IPFS, for example. People are making distributed file systems. People are creating smart contracts. So actually, I am from electrical engineering background, and one of the things that I saw was very important, which I feel like smart contracts can help solve, is that in the power grid, basically, there are a lot of people selling electricity. Like say Adani Power has some power station and they're selling electricity. Coal India is having a coal plant, they're selling electricity. And then these cities like government of Delhi, municipality of this thing, say Bangalore, they would be wanting to buy electricity. Now these kind of things, they are decided a little bit in advance, like 15 days before. Like today, how much electricity will be put on the grid and how much electricity will be taken from the grid. These things 15 days in advance it is decided, and such contracts are signed actually. So if Delhi says that we want to take 40 megawatt power, even on the particular day, if they don't need 40 megawatt, they will still have to take 40 megawatt power. They'll have to buy that. And if they need more than 40 megawatt, then there is a problem. Then load shedding will have to happen. Internally, the power distribution company will have to reduce the load somewhere because the contract is already signed. So I think this is a space. It's a very long-running tradition of this, future contracts. It is called options and future contracts for this power grid sharing. Now these are places where you can use actually blockchain, where these contracts are written into the blockchain already. That it becomes tamper-proof. The money at which this, and some central governing body then stops needing to be there, who will control these things, because today you need somebody like a power grid corporation who handles these things, but then that can be more decentralized. So like that, there can be ideas. And any other ideas? I think you might have any ideas to suggest to Raj.
Right. No, you covered it pretty well. That that if you have these fundamentals, definitely you can start building on to something. Actually, maybe I will maybe also share what we were talking just some time back, that in some time probably we will do session on building some basic blockchain applications. So keep a watch on our YouTube channel as well. We will maybe announce whenever we are conducting that workshop, and you can of course join us as well. That might be a good starting point for many who know the fundamentals but want to kind of get started with building an application.
Right. Yeah. I think Prasanna did a more theoretical topic, and after that also there was a lot of demand that they want to learn to build from scratch, and I think we plan to do that. So we will keep you people updated for that. When we come up with a sort of hands-on workshop for that. So we'll do that, and for that stay subscribed to our channel. You will get to know that when that happens. I think for now we can wrap up this topic, and hope all of you people be mindful of the things that when you said, which is very important, that fundamentals, understand what is the computation that goes behind it, rather than just think of it. So blockchain is not just a couple of cryptocurrencies going up and down in the market. Don't think of it as only that. It's very important that we think of the technology beneath it and see where it can be applied. Today, I feel a lot of places blockchain also getting applied where blockchain is not needed because of that hype. Now, if you remove that hype and you fundamentally understand, then you will see real use cases rather than just trying to fit it into it because just to be cool or something like that. So we'll definitely announce very soon when we have I think we'll plan a workshop where we will get you people to build a blockchain by your own hands using something like Solidity or even with JavaScript, so that it's easy to get started with that. So catch you guys when that happens. Till then, stay subscribed for discussions like this. Have a nice day, everybody.
Awesome. Take care, everyone, and of course subscribe so that you are updated of whenever we announce new stuff. Take care.
Okay. Bye.